Today on the Videomaker Podcast, Chris and I talked to Radha Mitchell. Rhada is an actress who's been in movies like Man on Fire, Finding Neverland, Celeste, Silent Hill, The Crazies, and a bunch more. She's got a new movie coming out called Dreamkatcher, which will be on VOD, that's Amazon and iTunes and the like, on April 28th. So we talked to Rhada all about what it's like to be an actress in Hollywood and what was like working on this movie in particular, but also what it's like working with directors and how directors can extract the best possible performances out of actors and actresses. But before we get to that interview, just a quick note. As always, if you've been listening to this podcast and you enjoy it, please go to iTunes and give us a 5-star review. It's really helpful for podcasts like ours. If you're listening anywhere else, just hit the subscribe button. It's always nice to have the podcast delivered straight to your mobile device, and the subscribe button will do that. It's very helpful for you and helpful for us as well. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Welcome to the Videomaker Podcast. I'm Mike Wilhelm, and with me, as always, across town this time is Chris Monlux.
What's happening?
And our special guest today, actress Radha Mitchell. Radha, how's it going?
Good. Hi.
Radha, where are you calling from today?
I'm in LA right now, so sunny LA. Yeah. Where are you guys?
We're in Northern California, up about 100 miles north of Sacramento in Chico.
Nice.
Yeah, way up here. So let's see, you guys are like the hot spot right now for the virus in California. What is, from your perspective, what's it been like in the motion picture industry for the past month? Is it pretty much like on ice?
Well, there's not a lot of shooting, although a friend of mine yesterday was talking about trying to do a little short film during this period, and it's a kind of a thriller with a set on a Skype conversation. So I was like, well, you could potentially just do that as a Skype conversation from people's houses. You know, they could film themselves and you could edit it, you know, in process as part of the experience. But she had some idea that she would somehow do some COVID-19 safe production in her house with actors in different rooms, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, there's people, you know, being creative or planning to be. Friends of mine that are writers are writing and getting paid, and that stuff seems to be going on, and people like me are not.
yeah, I'd imagine.
Stuff, you know, there seems to be, obviously, you know, people want to see more films in the future. People are preparing for that. And even right now, it's a great time, say, for Dreamkatcher to have its release, because we've got this captive audience that we might not have had for a streaming film.
Yeah, so I'd imagine people in pre-production are working, people are writing, people are certainly watching movies, maybe post is happening, but nothing's happening on set, I guess, right?
You know, we're probably like half a year or so, and then they'll run out of things to edit. So
yeah, I mean, right now my neighbor is an editor, quite a significant editor, and he was working on something in Italy, so he had to sort of flee home during that episode, and didn't carry the virus, so that was safe. But the project he was doing there, they were unclear whether they even had finance to finish, but they do, so he's going to finish it in his living room. And he's complaining about working at home, and I'm like, oh, I think it's great, you know, he gets to work. You know?
Yeah, for real. I'd imagine there's opportunity there for, you know, like the current version of like Blair Witch, you know, when that came out, like home video was a big thing, and Blair Witch really took off. You got the right script, I guess you could do a whole.
You could. I think it'd be quite an interesting concept to have people film their own part of the story in their own house, and somebody edits it, you know, remotely as it's being made. It would be quite interesting.
You were right. I think it just if we lean into the creativity with it and just accept our limitations. I mean, on Saturday Night Live this last weekend, they did it all. Now it wasn't live, but there was a lot of jokes about Zoom conversations and stuff. It's stuff that's still relevant. Of course, people want to escape and be entertained, and just, you know. So
how are they shooting that? Where are they shooting that? I didn't realize.
In New York, it was people from their homes. So like they did. Let's see, Pete Davidson, his mom filmed all the stuff because he lives with her. So all the stuff was filmed by her. 2 of the cast members lived together, so they were able to do some stuff a little bit more. But it was all around just dealing with things. It all had this skew of like, you know, through a camera phone or like, it was okay funny. But I was happy that they tried. It wasn't that funny.
Edit that well, right? I mean, that's not limited editing.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly. One thing I thought was interesting is they did Weekend Update, and they actually had more people on the call, so they had people laughing, at their jokes and stuff. And I imagine when you're doing that, when timing matters, you got to have something back from the audience.
Well, yeah, that's interesting too. Yeah.
So Rhada, you've got a movie coming out. It's Dreamkatcher with a K, which actually makes it pretty easy to search for on Google, I found.
It used to be a backward K, but it sort of reverted to forward.
Oh, yeah?
Backward was a cue to the genre, but I think just the unusual spelling still tells you.
Yeah. It turns out there's several movies called Dreamkatcher with a C, so you got to do the K just so that you stand out, I guess, right? So why don't you can you give us just like a synopsis of the film? I know that there's like a kid that's slashing people up, right?
Yeah, it goes there, but it starts off as a kind of tense drama between like a stepmother type character and this young boy who's grieving the recent loss of his mother. Turns out she was murdered, and there's a certain kind of seriousness to it. Like it feels like a drama, and then it goes to this really kind of extreme place where you get to see this kid play out all of those stepmother fantasies. And does the character prevail? Well, you have to wait and see. But yeah, it's definitely about dream hijacking, I guess. This kid's mind is kind of being affected by these really intense nightmares, and my character Gail is the psychiatrist or psychoanalyst and the girlfriend of his father, and somehow the two of them are like stuck in a house together. She's trying to fix him, and then she ends up seeing the world in a whole different kind of way.
So do you consider this, is this really more of a psychological thriller than it is a classic slasher movie then?
It has that tone initially, but it's both. Like the acting is very kind of naturalistic, but as the story kind of progresses, it sort of like slowly builds. It becomes like classic horror.
So have you done a movie like this before that's sort of that's the slasher style?
Have I done? Yeah, I've done a few kind of horror films, some in the sort of low budget genre, some like with more evolved genres. Trying to think offhand, slasher style. We made a movie with Blumhouse actually, that also had a kind of possessed kid. Also shot in one location with Kevin Bacon, and there wasn't necessarily a knife involved, but there was like monstrous kind of things going on and supernatural activity. So that's a kind of a genre, I guess, the possessed house, but in this case it's the possessed kid. And we're kind of playing with this mythology of these dream catchers that traditionally there's these Native American, I think, dream catchers, and you hang them over your bed and they catch the spirits so that you can sleep peacefully. But in this case, the actual dream catcher is possessed, and having it in your possession will distort your whole kind of personality.
That's fun.
So how do you? I'd imagine this type of role is quite a bit different than your standard dramatic role. How do you prepare to play a role where really is high intensity and horror themed? Like, is it much different from an actor's perspective?
Well, in these sorts of roles, you get to play the highs and the lows. So you get to go to the extreme of I guess fear, and all the adrenaline that goes with that. So that's kind of fun for an actor, because you either get to scream or you get to be the person making the other person scream. Both roles are great. Screaming is fun, and the power of the intimidator is a cool role. So in this case, it was interesting having the little kid be the powerful character. In this case, he's struggling between being this vulnerable little boy and being possessed. So that was interesting to play around with. But also the location where we shot informed a lot of what the experience of the characters was, because we were in this town called Bovina in upstate New York, and there was no cell phone reception. So I arrived there and I had like 3 days alone in a cabin in the woods with no car and no cell phone reception and the script. So I kind of was very, it was a creepy thing to be focusing on, but it really gave me a feeling of what the character was experiencing. Because in the story, they're isolated, they don't have great reception, as per, what it was actually like. So that was kind of immersive. And then I sort of couldn't cope with that. It was a bit too much for me. So I moved into this share house, and, it's a low budget film. So there was X amount of dollars. And we were all sharing this big haunted kind of house with all these rooms. So we had, a lot of the crew in there, the director, the producers, and at night we'd sort of riff on what we were going to do the following day. And then we'd shoot the movie. So it was very much, 24 hours a day, Dreamkatcher until it was done. But having that proximity gave us kind of shorthand on set, especially with our DP, who was really cool about kind of experimenting with process. And if we happened to change our mind about what we were doing, he'd be happy to move the camera and just, reconfigure. And I liked that. It felt like, we were painting, it wasn't overly conceived. We were creating it in the moment, which was a good vibe for the material.
For your part, how long was the production?
Just a couple of weeks. I think everyone was there like 3 weeks or something, 4 weeks. So we were in and out. But we were mostly in the house in this one location, and there was a few locations nearby that were also being utilized. And a lot of the people that owned those spaces had sort of befriended the director, so they were pretty cool about, the guy who owned the house we were shooting in was still living in the house while we were shooting. How he coped mentally with that situation. He would go to bed at night and just sleep in the chaos of the set, and then wake up, and I guess all his new friends would arrive at early in the morning and the whole thing would start again. I think there was some concern when I, in the spirit of the moment, used this, like an axe, and hacked it into the floor of his house. He was like, "What are you guys doing?" So that was a little bit of a problem, but generally it works unbelievably smoothly in his home.
So the whole staying at a cabin alone in the woods, a few days beforehand, was that intentional? Like you wanted to go out and be in the cabin in the woods, or? It
was not. What? I didn't realize that was what I was signing up for.
Oh, like they put you there.
I was in the south of France, and I flew into New York, and I was like, "Oh, it's so great. We'll be like 2 hours outside of the city, go back to New York during the weekends." And arriving, realizing we were just that too far, like 3 hours away from the city, and there was no car and there was no nothing. It was great because it was nature and it was green, but it was sort of like, I guess, what we're experiencing now, like slightly inconvenient. It was very inconvenient, but somehow the line producers were able to kind of work around the inconvenience of it and, get everybody where they were supposed to be on time. And, obviously communication was complicated without having that shorthand that we're all used to, but we were mainly in one location, so it was definitely doable.
So what drew you to the role? Why did you choose it? What was the
well, I liked the script. I liked just the sort of, there was a kind of sobriety in the writing. Like, it's kind of simple, resting on the shoulders of these two unusual characters, a shrink and a kid, expecting a lot from a little boy, actually. And I kind of liked that. And then what I didn't like initially was sort of my favorite part of the story, because I was like, oh, this is a great, like, restrained kind of unusual drama. And then it goes to this horror kind of place. Why? And then as we were shooting it, I really embraced that part of it, and I thought, oh, this is really kind of where the movie's at, and this is the best part of the film, with what we were able to do with what we had. That was kind of exciting too. And also having Lynn Shay associated to the project, that was, interesting, obviously, to me in the beginning because I really respect her work. And I kind of like the sort of female energy there, having like an older woman and then my character in a kind of mid kind of time in her life, entering a kind of new relationship. All that stuff was sort of interesting dramatically. And then also I was going to be working with friends of mine. A friend of mine, Orion Williams, is one of the producers, and also I'd sort of become friendly with the director. And he was working with a lot of his friends. So there was a kind of community around the project that I already knew the taste palette was going to be kind of on par, and it was going to be something fun to do.
So how old is the child in real life, the kid that's...
I think he was 9 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, but he would come to set and he would order a cup of coffee, and why is he allowed to drink coffee? But he said he needed it for his performance. I understood that.
Yeah, right.
And he was remarkable, very kind of informed, intelligent little boy, like read the news. I was waiting for him to light up a cigar. Thank God he never did, but very self-possessed. Yeah.
Something about little kids in horror movies that always just like cranks up the creep factor, if you ask me. Like, I was watching the trailer for this, and as soon as that kid pulled out a knife, I'm like, ugh. I
don't want that. He's great because he has that little baby face too. Like, he looks like a cherub.
Very. You got kind of an Omen thing going on there.
Yeah, he's sweet looking. Yeah, kind of Omen thing. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, sweet little kid. But he did have that sort of self-possessed kind of. He could hold his own space. And even when I met him on the first day, I felt like, wow, this kid's got. We're gonna have an interesting chemistry because he's not your typical little kid. He actually was a very invested actor. He would like really kind of get into it and understood it. And as much as he's probably not allowed to watch it, he kind of, he understood what he was doing.
So, the saying is never work with kids and animals. I take it that wasn't the case this time.
No, I mean, I think there's kids naturally, I guess they're just used to playing games. Mm-hmm. So they lose themselves in an interesting way. If you can find a kid that understands what the story is or understands the emotional kind of context, there's something really natural and unaffected it can be with kids.
It's all about keeping the attention and having discipline, I imagine, really, because...
Well, that was sort of the director's job. I think he was like bribing him at certain points. He owes him all this Lego, and I'm not quite sure what else their deal was, but there was like some kind of chocolate deal going on.
I'd sign up for that.
Yeah.
So, what would you say was the most challenging aspect of playing this role?
I think it was just what was interesting about it was the opportunity to kind of research the unconscious, and kind of look into dreams and dream psychology and, this idea of lucid dreaming, and plenty of time to kind of reflect on these ideas. And also looking at cognitive behavioral therapy, these ideas around contemporary psychology where you can desensitize yourself to things you might be afraid of. That was all interesting research. What was challenging probably was just holding the focus of it for the period of time that we were doing it, because we were shooting and then we were in each other's company at night, and then we were shooting, and there was really like no escape. There was nowhere to go. So just the 24-hour dayness of the project was probably the challenge of it. And it's like a little marathon. You run it and then you're free of the whole thing. So that's a challenge, but it also is kind of interesting and great to put your focus so completely into something for a period of time.
So you mentioned earlier that it was it's a lower budget movie. Is that sort of intensity and closeness to others just a result of the budget being smaller, or just a hyper intensive shoot schedule this time?
I think it's just you're in every scene, you're shooting all day, and then you're talking about it at night. And that's probably got something to do with the budget, because there was nowhere else to go. There was actually nowhere to stay, in that town. There was one motel that was like moldy, and then there was this house, and then there was the other house that was by itself on the hill, and these were the options. So bringing us together like that was probably a result of that situation. But generally you can't expect to enter into a film project and skip through it unless you've got like 2 lines and off you go. But if you're in every scene, and even if you're not in every scene, there's generally a level of focus that you don't find in other industries, or you hope for that, actually, because if you don't have that, then you've got something that's flat.
So did I hear you mention earlier that this was all shot in a single location?
Primarily, yeah, not only, but mostly.
Does that make the production process any easier?
Well, in this case, definitely, because of the limited budget and the limited communication, because as I said, we didn't have the cell phone reception. So knowing at least where we had to go every day was, simplified some of the questions. And I wasn't heavily involved in that side of things. But yeah, certainly having the one location helped. But even in one location, there's different rooms and, there's different things that need to be prepared. And it can be a process in itself, even shooting in one location.
Okay, well, I think actually just real quick, we're going to take a quick ad break, and we'll be back in just a second. For years, Videomaker has been producing quality video training to help you take your video skills to the next level. Now you can access it all from a Videomaker Plus account. We've got courses covering everything from learning how to navigate your camera with our course on camera controls and settings, to learning about color grading, or even how to start a video business. Videomaker Plus has something for you. The Videomaker library is split into 4 levels. If you're just starting, try our inexpensive starter level membership, which gets you access to essential video training and a digital subscription to Videomaker Magazine. For the most professional training, go all the way up to our professional tier membership, which gives you access to our entire library of training, which covers advanced concepts like running a video business or becoming a documentary filmmaker. Plus, the professional tier is the only membership with access to our popular webinar recordings. Plus, right now, for a limited time, you can get the professional tier of Videomaker Plus for the price of the creative tier. That's $100 savings. Sign up at videomaker.com/spring deal. That's videomaker.com/spring deal. Okay, welcome back. So, Rhada, I wanted to ask you a little bit about like what it's like, just like doing the work of being an actress and the relationship that you tend to have with a director. So as an actress, what do you typically like to see in a director that empowers you to give your best performance? Like, what kind of qualities was a great director have?
A really weak director.
Oh yeah. One that lets you call the shots.
Right. That's my favorite kind of director. No, it's rare you find somebody like that. It's rare. But that would be great. Somebody who you can trust with the story, I guess, and trust with the edit of your performance, because so much of what you do it ends on the day, and then what happens to it later is kind of where it becomes the performance. So somebody who you can trust with the performance and who you can trust with the story, and who's cool, a good vibe. You don't want to be around people that are assholes in any department, and invariably that's what you come across. So somebody who's got a good vibe, who keeps the energy of the space, kind of where people are feeling enthused by what they're doing and engaged by what they're doing.
Are there any particular techniques or tactics that a director tends to employ that works to get the right performance out of you? Like, I know some directors are very hands-off, right? And I
like that. I don't like hands-off. When I was younger, I preferred somebody to direct me, because I felt so unclear about what I was doing, because I was still figuring it out, So I wanted somebody to guide me through in what, wanted to know what they wanted and how it made sense to them. But now I'm like, don't tell me I don't want to know what you think. This is my interpretation. And I think you see that in a lot of stubborn old actors. They want to do it their way. And if you have any sort of intelligence as a director, you hire people instinctively that you know are going to bring something else to the story, not just what you imagined. So you want that collaboration, I presume, because your own sensitivity, your own sensibility, you can only imagine things so far. And if you get someone building on that, then you get a bigger concept. Obviously, you want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, that we have the same intention. But as an actor, I'm pretty sure most actors you talk to at a certain point don't want someone telling them how to do their thing.
So your IMDb is pretty extensive. You work with a lot of directors. What are like some common mistakes that you've encountered that directors often or occasionally do, that it's just like not necessarily that their style is not the way that you like it, but just in terms of like a rookie move to do this kind of thing?
What styles do I like? Did you say?
Not so much what styles do you like or do you not like, but what kind of mistakes have you just encountered directors doing that sort of reveals them to be sometimes, either amateurish or like just simple mistakes they might make that new directors could avoid?
Well, I mean, I think probably for a new director, and I've worked with first-time directors, and you want to be prepared. Like, you want to know what your shot list is, because you want to have an anchor in case the shit hits the fan. But I think you can like really shoot yourself in the foot if you try to overly control the process. And I understand the anxiety about it, especially for a first-time director, because you're just getting on the saddle. But I would say, to me, the magic of collaboration with all of your departments is when you have a group of people all focused on something at the same time. There's the energy of that, and having them be in their own flow. So if you try to overly control those processes, you're going to lose the magic of the cinema. And it's, even as an actor, it's amazing when you don't quite know what the DP is going to do, but he's dancing around you with the camera and you're aware of each other's presence, but there's a flow to it. And the director too, you want to give these people this sense of dance. You want there to be a dance. So I've worked with first-time directors that have been really kind of anxious about their idea of what they thought the thing was. And I think they kill the spirit of things. They have killed the spirit of things. Maybe they're getting what they want. But directors that don't have an anchor, don't have a shot list, are going to lose the confidence of the crew. And, you really need to have a plan, and then you need to be super flexible with that plan, because invariably nothing's going to happen like you wanted. The light's going to change, it's probably going to rain. You just don't know. You've got to be ready to go with something you didn't expect.
Mm-hmm. So I'm hearing a theme about, just sort of like delegation and trusting the team on one hand, right? Like, hire people that are competent and then trust that they'll do what they're supposed to do. So heard that as well in your response about how directors work with you. And the other one, it sounds like, is just like basic organization.
This is like any leadership skill, right? Hire people you trust. If you've unfortunately had to hire people that you don't really trust, then I guess give them a very clear mandate so that you're all on the same page. Like, really communicate so you're not surprised by something that's just totally not what you meant. Communicate before the thing begins, not like on the day of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how much of the sort of rehearsal time on a typical role that you play is done with a director versus rehearsing just kind of on your own in preparation?
Well, it's very rare these days to rehearse. You kind of just show up with, like, I just did a TV show recently where I flew from Australia to New York. I got offered the thing the day before and then ended up getting off the plane and walking onto set. So I had a little bit of time to study this script on the plane. And it was for that show, Law and Order. Mm-hmm. So that was a well-oiled machine. Yeah, and it has its own momentum. It's like kind of joining the army. It's got its own flow. So you're kind of a cog in the wheel. But even so, there was absolutely no rehearsal, even for me. I didn't really have any time to think about what I was saying. I showed up and started playing this character, which somehow I was figuring out in process and ended up being a great experience. But yeah, my point is, especially, in television, there's very little rehearsal. In film sometimes, and there's not an expectation of it. I think a lot of that you're supposed to, and you'd hope that people prepare before they show up to the collective with their own ideas about it. And then what's cool is discovering it. And I like discovering that on camera with the other actors, or, what have they thought about it? What are they bringing to it? And now we're doing it, kind of. But to overly prepare, I think you could make things stale, I guess, unless you're preparing, which could also be interesting, for years. If you prepared something for years and years and it became this super layered kind of metamorphosis of an idea, and then you finally filmed it, that could be very interesting. But sometimes you run across this issue where people try to inform their performance on others if there's too much rehearsal. I think there's spontaneity and surprise of it, and it's a bit of a kind of a joust. It's good just to have it show up in the moment.
Do you think that approach has anything to do with, the transition from film to digital? You can roll all day long with digital, right?
Yeah, I think it's certainly it's different to how it used to be. Cost's different too, and how they value cost is probably changed. And so the time of rehearsal, people don't really want to pay for, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, if you could shoot.
But even referring to Dreamkatcher again, having that collaboration, because we were staying in that house, was free time to kind of discuss the shot list for the following day. And there was a few producers, including me, on the project. So we were able to sort of think in those terms before we would shoot the following day. And that was a shorthand for the project.
That sounds really intense, doing that for a month. I'll focus really hard all day and give it my best, but when it's closing time, sometimes I want that world to disappear for me.
Those people, right? You don't want to see those people, and that was why it was cool that they were cool people, and and that I sort of we knew each other socially anyway. So there was kind of a bit of a school camp vibe to that as well.
How much of the acting process throughout the day when you're on set, you're in the shoes of this fictional character all day long. I would imagine that, when they, the wrap for the day, that you just want to be yourself again, right?
Yeah.
Does that affect your mental state, I guess, if you're doing it for 2 solid weeks?
Sometimes for me, I kind of develop in process. I'll be developing the character during the shoot. So say for the thing I just did, the TV show, having had no time, flying over, landing on set. Then a couple of days later, I had a weekend. So that weekend, I was just researching and cruising through the jet lag. So I'd be awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, watching stuff that was related to the character. And so if you have an interesting character, then it's an interesting process, because the subject is going to be a bit compelling and the research will be just interesting. So in this case, I was sort of a bit like that too. We'd have weekends, but we were all a bit exhausted. So one day you'd be just crashed out, maybe I'd be cruising through stuff on lucid dreaming and the benefit of nightmares and, just whatever kind of tangential information that I found interesting. And then maybe there'd be a day to do a leisure thing. But as there was no car, that wasn't, it was just going for a walk.
Yeah. Count how many leaves are on the tree.
You try to claim your habits. Is there a gym or is there something? I like to do yoga, whatever people's thing is, it's generally somewhat transportable.
Well, I hope that the shoot was, quite a while ago. It would be pretty rough to go straight from that shoot, into this lockdown. Right now,
yeah, no, I mean, I've been talking to my mom. Obviously, she's in Australia, and I'm thinking, wow, poor Australia, they went through the fires and that was like a crisis. Now they're all locked up and it's just like,
yeah,
it's an interesting time.
It's a really weird
a similar situation up here where in Northern California, the town next to ours just totally burned to the ground in 2018.
Paradise.
Yeah, and so those people now are, well, most of them are gone, but they came out of that and had to go right into lockdown. It's really bummer.
I had masks around because of it, so I'm like, oh, I got an N95. I'm great. I got 2 of them.
I just done some renovation-ish thing where we were spray painting a staircase. So I had like these painter's masks. So that was cool. Ready to go. Bring on the apocalypse.
Yeah, right. Oh, man.
Yeah.
So I got to ask, considering, the subject matter here behind the Dreamkatcher, the film, you mentioned lucid dreaming a couple times. Did you try the lucid dreaming tactic?
I tried. I can't do it. What you're supposed to do is test reality in your waking state.
Yeah.
So, is this a couch? Is it real? Yes, real. I can feel it. And then you do that periodically throughout the day. A coffee table, is that real? Yes, it's real. And eventually you'll start doing this in your dream. And then you'll be like, no, it's a dream wall. I can walk through it. I will walk through it. And so once you know you're dreaming whilst you're dreaming, you can influence the dream. Which, I've got to keep practicing, I guess. But it sounded cool. And then, there's the other kind of school of thought that, we should embrace nightmares, that we shouldn't hide from the nightmare. And if you can consciously, whilst you're in your nightmare, lucidly embrace the nightmare. Like literally there was one Buddhist guy who was like, I was possessed by these dreams about this monster and, terrified, couldn't sleep, didn't want to sleep. And then kind of one night that creature thing came to me and I walked towards it because I was in a lucid state and I like embraced this thing. And then it started to kind of just crumble. And in the end, I realized I was just hugging myself. And then it became this huge revelation that the thing that terrified me is me. And, you hope for a dream like that. I mean, I've had a few dreams in my life that I still recall, and they are they felt like sort of psychic gateways. Like this is a moment where I can sort of see some element of my consciousness. I mean, there's one dream I had years ago about this dolphin, and it was like at the end of a pier. I'm doing that because it was like, like Skippy. And it was like saying, come on, let's go down under the water. And it wanted me to go deep, deep into this water. And I was at the end of the pier and I was just like, oh, I can't. I'm like too scared to go down there with you. So then the dolphin like swims away enough, it's in the horizon, and it turns around and goes, so it was like saying, I'm going to come back. And it was interesting because that was in my 20s, like early end of university. And I think I had these ideas about what I wanted to do, but I wasn't quite ready to get on a plane and like begin the adventure or, face some of these things that were scaring me. But I did have the feeling even in the dream that it was going to say, oh, come back, we'll deal with it when you can deal with it. So there's dreams, and there's others that I won't tell you about, but there's a few dreams in my life that have punctuated moments. So they're interesting. I think it's fascinating, whether they mean anything or don't mean anything. Thinking about dreams is fascinating.
It is. That's actually one of my questions I ask my son every morning. Did you dream last night? What did you dream? Yeah. And we talk about it, and he asked me what I dream, and I actually have I can go back into dreams after waking up. In the middle of the night, so I'll continue a dream after waking up, and there's a couple things that are cues to me that I'm sleeping, so like or that I'm dreaming, and one of them is that I can't see well. I can just see out of the bottom of my eyes, so I can see people's shoes, and if I do this, I can kind of see them, and that reminds me I'm in a dream. That's not actually how I am.
Dude. So then you can like choose your own adventure.
Sometimes it's usually kind of like you just get out of the situation, or it's like. All of a sudden all of the fakeness goes away and it just transfers me to another thought. Like all of a sudden that dream's spoiled. I'm starting a new dream. Which is, so it's like you capture it and then all of a sudden it dusts away.
No, it's your superhero opportunity.
Yeah, I want to fly.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I envy that. Like I I mean, I have at times, but not frequently, knowing that I'm dreaming while I'm dreaming.
I have a lot of reoccurring dreams, so that tends to be the thing that anchors it. But yeah, it's really interesting. I actually took a sleep and dream class, and I remember I decided to stay in it because the teacher told us that if you wanted to sleep during class, that would count. And as many times as I tried to fall asleep in a class, I just couldn't do it. But I remember thinking, man, all I have to do is write down my dreams. I think about them anyway. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And it's it's totally interesting thing of how some stuff means. And it's like, if this means something to you, it does mean something to you. But if it doesn't, it's just your mind. And it's just such I love how there's just absolutely no real anchor to it.
Scientifically, we've kind of written them off. Like, we're not attributing much meaning to them. And maybe we just don't get it. I mean, who knows what it will mean in the future, in terms of how we look at the mind and consciousness.
Yeah, I think a lot of times it's just this processing stuff. And I know for me, it's like a nightmare is cathartic. You'll wake up and realize, everything's all good. I feel really good now. Instead of being fearful, like my son would be waking up from a nightmare or like a terror or something like that. But I think if you embrace them, you might be able to be a little happier when you wake up. One of my dad's best friends says he doesn't dream, and I think that he was also in the Vietnam War, and I'm like, I think your traumatic life before you probably makes it so your brain wants to forget, and it's just very interesting.
Well, I know someone else who likes nightmares because they're like, it's actually much more exciting.
It's totally true. My wife loves horror movies, and I didn't like them before I started dating her, and now I see a lot of just great. I like the feeling when you're done. Just life isn't as bad as that thing I was just experiencing, and that makes me feel better. I was talking to
COVID-19.
Yeah, I was asking Mike. Except for we're waking up in a nightmare now. But I was asking Mike what his favorite horror movie was, and I asked him about how the catharsis of it, and he's like, "That doesn't even consider me," and I'm like, it's the how I like. I don't like a bunch of startling. Don't freak me out that way. Get my hair on my arms to raise and get me to anticipate things, but just to go boo, that's not all that fun for me at least. But it's definitely an interesting thing of what draws people to be to those types of films and those kinds of stories, because it might be just the curiosity of what's going to happen next. But I think for me, it's like getting the heart racing about something that really doesn't matter.
I think it's definitely that. I think. Obviously fear or adrenaline gets us to feel alive, and some of us are kind of addicted to that state anyway, just in the way we live. So having a way to express it, I think it's a way to process it, but also a way to get that hit of adrenaline.
I agree.
Okay, Rhada, so I think we just got one more question for you, then we'll end it there. But I'll put you on a spot here and just ask you, if you had one secret that you could tell people who wanted to, move to LA and be filmmakers or be an actor or an actress and make it their career, what is the one secret?
So funny. I don't know why I was tempted to say this, just because I'm a bit cynical. No, when I first, when I was 18 or 19 or something, finished school, and I had an agent because I did a show when I was a kid. And I went to the agent and I'm like, well, I finished school. I'm ready to be an actress. And he's like, don't do it. Did it to yourself. And I remember thinking, what a jerk. This is what I want to do. And he was actually just it was kind of concerned, paternal kind of stance he took. He just thought it wasn't a great idea. And so, should people move to LA and pursue their dream? Everybody should pursue their dream. Obviously, we all know that, especially living in America, we're conditioned to pursue the dream, and we should. You have to try. Imagine not putting yourself out there, not pursuing the dream. And so once you do find yourself here pursuing your dream, you got to go all out, I guess. I mean, I came out with, I don't know how much money, but I remember having one friend who was a director actually, and he was counting the cents on his gas tank. And for some reason it seemed to me like the wrong place to be putting his energy. I felt like I'm just going to spend everything I have and just see what happens. I don't want to work as a waitress. Like, I want to just pursue. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, yes, you have to make compromises. You have to support the vision, but don't compromise the vision. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but don't compromise your vision. And if you want to, for me at that time, I wanted to make independent films. And I think someone was trying to get me to do television at an earlier point, but I didn't want to do that. And wasn't necessarily the lucrative way to look at things, but it worked out. And I was sleeping on couches and living in a suitcase and, doing it like that. But point is, it was fun because it was an adventure, and I didn't compromise the craziness of the vision. So I would say if you have that kind of passion and you really want something, people will, I think, respond to it no matter what it is.
All right. Good advice. Okay, maybe we'll call it there. So thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thanks. See you later. Bye.
Okay, Rhada, we're going to give you a formal outro that we'll write up, but you don't need to stick around for that. So I think we're all good.
Great. All right.
Nice to meet you.
Guys. Yeah, I'm going to try and, what did you say you do when you're sleeping? You see the feet or something?
Yeah, it's just, I noticed, and it's probably the same thing as noticing your couch or something is real, but it was that I'm impaired, and this isn't a real impairment. Like, how would your eyes be so heavy?
I can't speak. I can't make a noise.
I've had that where you yell, yet it's that kind of thing. You're like, this isn't, and then that is the reality of, oh, I'm in a dream. But that usually dissolves my world. So.
Yeah, no, I've had that and that. Yeah. All right. Well, good to talk to you guys. See you later.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening, and thanks to Radha Mitchell for joining us. You can find Rhada on Instagram at Radha Mitchell. That's Radha Mitchell, just like the normal Mitchell. You can also watch Dreamkatcher, her new movie, which is out on Amazon and iTunes on April 28th. And also you can go to YouTube and watch the trailer there if you're at all interested. Just check out Dreamkatcher with a K, and it'll come right up. So for Chris Monlux and everyone here at Videomaker, I'm Mike Wilhelm, and you've been listening to the Videomaker Podcast. We'll catch you next time.